Welcome to episode 101 of the 1871 podcast. So, as you might have heard on our last episode, Johnny and I are currently counting down our favourite 25 Reading players, and this is a part of a Reading FC Top 100 series. So this is the first part of that, the second episode in the series. So we're continuing our countdown of our 25 favourite Reading players. But before we start on that, Johnny, this will interest you. So on one of the recent episodes, I talked about the quiz that you took part in, and at that stage you were in the lead.
Oh no.
So we decided we're going to give people a bit of time to enter the quiz. We've been getting some more results coming in. So I will reveal the answers on the next episode, and then we're going to crown our 1871 podcast quiz champion.
Yeah.
I would say from the results that have come in, the scores that have come in so far, it's very close. So we'll be announcing the results, the leaderboard, the final leaderboard, and the overall champion on our next episode, which is episode 102. So this is episode 101. So how are you feeling about the quiz, Johnny? Do you think you're in with a shout of winning?
No.
Well, we'll see. Find out on the next
being positive. I'm using the Paul Ince approach to my quizzing.
Find out on the next episode. So, look, going back to episode 100, it was our 100th episode last time. And to mark our 100th episode, that's why we come up with the idea of doing a Reading FC Top 100. And the first part of that is to count down our favourite 25 Reading players each. So on episode 100, on the last episode, we started counting down 10 players each from our lists, starting from number 25 down to number 16. And on this episode, we'll be counting down from 15 to 6. And then on the next episode, we'll be revealing our top 5 Reading players. And on that episode, as I say, we'll also be announcing who is our Reading FC quiz champion. And then following on from that, to continue the Reading FC Top 100 series that we're doing, we'll both reveal our 10 memorable games. So that'll be on episode 103. And then we'll continue the series with our 5 memorable seasons. So that's episode 104, followed by 5 managers and 5 influential people in Reading's history for episode 105. And you might be able to see where this is going. So episode 105 completes our Reading FC Top 100 series. And then fittingly, on episode 106, have a guess what we're going to be talking about. We will be looking back at Reading's magnificent 106 season on episode 106. So we thought that made sense. I think that was your idea, wasn't it, Johnny?
Something like that.
I can't remember.
I do come up with ones occasionally.
Yeah, occasionally you come up with some good ideas. So look, let's crack on with our countdown of our favourite Reading players. And let's start with a recap on who we chose as our number 25 down to number 16 on our 2 lists. So in a way, quite surprisingly, so far, we haven't had any players that featured on both lists. So we think that's going to happen possibly on this episode, and I imagine definitely on the next episode. So my 25 to 16 of my favourite Reading players was as follows. Number 25, Gary Westwood. Number 24, Colin Bailey. Number 23, Andy Rogers. Number 22, Paul Canaville. Number 21, Keith McPherson. Number 20, Darius Dovcek. Number 19, Steve Wood. Number 18, Jamie Curitin. Number 17, Stuart Bevan. And number 16, Kevin Doyle. So that's my 25 to 16. Johnny, can you give us a recap with your countdown of your favourite Reading players, starting with number 25 on your list down to 16?
Yep. So 25, we've got Fran Kirby. 24, Adam Federici. 23, Ivor Ingemarson. 22, Gary Peters. 21, Jimmy Quinn. 20, AD Williams, 19, Kerry Dixon, 18, Iwar Phil Parkinson, 17, Jan Kermigan, 16, Lalala Tony Rougier, and
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So as I say, that's 20 names so far, all different. But I suspect we might start to get a few repeats from now on.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue our countdown now from 15 down to 6. Johnny, do you want me to start again?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with my number 15. Someone we've had as a guest on the 1871 podcast. My number 15 in my countdown is Keith Curle. Very quick centre back. He signed from Bristol City for 150,000. Sorry about that. He signed for 150,000 in 1987, and he made more than 50 appearances for Reading. Played in the Simard Cup final in 1988, and probably the quickest centre-back Reading have ever had. And when he was a guest on the podcast, I don't know if you remember this, Johnny, I kind of always assumed that Michael Gilks was the quickest player, but he said that whenever him and Michael Gilks used to take part in a sprint race, he would win, but sometimes Michael Gilks cheated and jump-started, but he still managed to catch him up. I mean, do you remember Keith Curle as a Reading?
Yes, class. And afterwards, he went on to have a good career, didn't he? He was a great centre-back. Played for England as well, didn't he? And,
gone on to become a manager. But yeah, great player to watch. There's not many centre-backs who have played for any club or country have been as quick as Keith Curle as a centre-back. If you compare him to someone like Martin Hicks, just the pace really helped him. I think he said he started as a winger, didn't he? And how do you start as a winger and end up as a centre back? But anyway, that speed helps because there's a lot of quick forwards, isn't there? So great player. So Keith Curle, my number 15. How about you, Johnny? Who's your number 15?
I've gone for one of our best finishers, Adam Le Fondre. He was one of those guys that proper poacher, a bit old school. He's still playing over in Sydney, still scoring. But he just one of those, he's just a natural finisher. Obviously that season we got promoted. He's kind of a bit of a super sub. Scored plenty in the Premier League, and I was quite surprised he never really got an offer to stay up and play at that level. Because he certainly was, it made finishing look so easy. We've had a few like that, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some stage. But yeah, I just, and we've had him on the podcast as well, and a lovely guy, very, very unassuming, very down to earth, and he was just part of that machine that Brian had that was just was superb to watch.
And he was top scorer 3 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
As you'll know from the quiz.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, won't say any. Don't want to give away any clues to any of the questions, but just like you say, great finisher. Sort of some similarities with Jamie Cureton and players like that in terms of finishing ability. Just seem to be able to kind of be in the right place at the right time to actually create those opportunities to finish as well, I guess. Yeah,
definitely.
So Adam Le Fondre is your number 15. We still haven't had any clashes so far, but that will come, I'm sure. My number 14. I'm tempted to say, one of my favourite Reading players, but that's kind of everyone on this list. So number 14 is Steve Richardson. So Steve Richardson, fullback, 7th on the list of all-time appearance makers for Reading with 457 appearances. A quick left back. If I remember, he had a bit of a squeaky voice. Do you remember Steve Richardson? Johnny?
No, not the voice. Okay. I don't remember the voice.
I might be thinking of someone else, but anyway. So Yeah, quick look back, signed in 1982, player of the season in 82, 83 and 83, 84. Played in the record-breaking Royal season and in the Simod Cup final in 1988. Fantastic player. I think, you know, in terms of favourite players, you're obviously going to have some goal scorers in there. You're going to have some wingers. But I think, you know, fullbacks are often, especially if they're attacking fullbacks, if they support the attacks, you know, they can be exciting players to watch. And
definitely.
He was a great player for Reading, and all those appearances, more than 450 appearances as well. So that's why I've got him on my list. Yeah, Johnny, over to you for your 14.
Yeah, and another appearance maker, one of the leading one, Martin Hicks. Again, just you know, he was Mr. Reading, wasn't he? You know, to play that amount of games for the club, you know, through some of our best seasons. Probably, you talked about, you know, someone like Keith Curle. Probably wouldn't be quite as quick as Keith.
No.
Proper old school centre back. I think that's what I would class him as. You know, but
Yeah,
to be centre back and to play that many games, and you know, to be as physical as he was, takes some doing, doesn't it? Really.
yeah. And he played in the Simod Cup final as well, didn't he? So
yeah.
Wasn't he part of the team that Steve Death was in that got the record for most consecutive clean sheets or something like that? Was he?
Yeah, no, I was just checking it. Yeah, no, yeah, 1,000 minutes, 1,103 minutes, 79. Something. Yeah, takes again.
So how long was he at Reading for? About 10 years?
It was
10, 11.
How many years was he there? It was actually longer than that. It was actually 13.
Oh, 13.
13 years. Yeah.
Well, I won't say too much about him, just in case he might be on my list further.
Yeah, so, no, definitely.
So he's your number 14, Martin Hicks, yeah?
Yeah.
So moving on to my number 13, Terry Hurlock. Do you remember him?
Geez, yeah. Oh, good. How can you not remember Terry?
So listen, I think the best way to sum up Terry Hurlock is that Reading had never had a player like Terry Hurlock before, and they've never had a player like Terry Hurlock since Terry Hurlock. So he joined Brentford in February 1986, and I think it was a club record at the time. I've got a feeling it was something like 92,000, or might have got that wrong, but I think it was a big fee at the time. Signed from Brentford midway through the 85-86 season. So actually towards the end of that season, February 86. It's fair to say, I think, that he was a beast in midfield. And he looked, I don't know if you remember what he looked like. Just by way of a suitable description for Terry Hurlock for anyone who doesn't remember him. So he looked and played a bit like a marauding caveman. So he had loads of hair, didn't he? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And just the way he played, and he kind of had the look to go with it as well. I can imagine that the opposition midfielders were basically scared of him. So that was part of the you know, the plus points for Reading, and obviously signing him worked as he helped Reading win the Division 3 title.
Yeah.
So Reading have had, you know, it's fair to say, a few combative midfielders over the years. Nobody quite like Terry Hurlock. So Terry Hurlock is my number 13. So back to you, Johnny, for your 13.
Yeah, 13. Again, I think a true leader and championship winner, Joby McAnuff. I think very underrated as well as a player, but classy. You know, he just did what he did for the team. Could play wing, central midfield as needed. Quiet leader, but you know, I think he just demanded respect and led by example. And, you know, and that team that got promoted, you know, that was down to his leadership. And a great player to watch as well. You know, aside from his leadership skills, you know, he was attacking, you know, go at players. Good, you know, goal scorer as well at that. And you know, to lead us to a title, you know, enough said. Enough said.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he's obviously gone on to become a pundit, and you see from his analysis of the game, you can see how he was kind of thinking like that when he was a player.
Yeah,
Reading the game.
yeah, smart footballer, isn't he?
Like you say, a leader not only by example, but in all aspects of that. That word leader.
Yeah.
Great player. So that's your number 13. So moving on to number 12. Still haven't got any clashes so far. It's going to happen soon. My number 12. On your first list, you had Jimmy Quinn. My number 12 is Stuart Lovell.
Ah.
And obviously, what a brilliant partnership with Jimmy Quinn. 93-94 season, I think Jimmy Quinn scored 40. Stuart Lovell also got plenty of goals, and it's just one of those dream partnerships, wasn't it? Reading won promotion that season, and he was actually top scorer the following season when we nearly went up, and obviously top scorer. There was one particular goal that he didn't score, the penalty save. And we all remember that one, the final at Wembley. And again, we've just talked about it. A great finisher. I think that was his big strength, wasn't it? His finishing.
Yeah, definitely. I think when he had that bad injury that he talked about on the podcast, I think that changed his game, unfortunately. But he was great. Yeah, the partnerships you never forget, do you? Like him and Quinny. They were different types of players that gelled so well together.
Yeah, it was a really good balance. And if you think of Reading have had quite a few of those players over the years. Jamie Cureton being another one, and it was Jamie Cureton and Martin Butler, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Nicky Forster, people like that. So I think because Jimmy Quinn got all the goals that season, I think Stuart Lovell kind of was perhaps not as well remembered, but I think they'll be remembered as a partnership as well, won't they?
Yeah, no, definitely, and a decent guy as well. And he's gone to do pundit stuff now, hasn't he, for Sky in Scotland?
He went up and did well in Scotland afterwards, didn't he? After he left Reading. So my number 12 on my list of favourite Reading players is Stuart Lovell. And over to you, Johnny, for your number 12 now.
Yeah, part of the same team. I've gone for Darius Dovcek. Class. He was a player I don't think we'd ever seen at Reading at that point. That style of play that he had, the calmness, the leadership, and a good footballer. As a centre back. I like what a signing for Reading. I think one of the best signings we've had. He was brilliant. I couldn't say any more about him than that, because I think anyone that watched him just see how classy he was.
Well, he's the first one, isn't he? So he's the first one that has been confirmed on both of our lists. Because
that's not bad.
He was on my list, the start of my list on the last episode, on episode 100. Signed from Celtic, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
More than 50 appearances for Poland, and I think class is the right word. So he kind of took that position to another level, I think, for Reading when he came in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that was, if we ever did a list of Reading's greatest signings, I imagine he might get a look in for that list.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, real kind of to sign a player of that quality, given where we were at the time as well, coming down from Celtic. Really great acquisition and proved to be like you say, a class player. So that's your number 12.
Yep.
Darius Dovcek, the first player to appear so far on both of our lists. My number 11. I'm guessing, Johnny, that this player will almost certainly be on your list. I don't know, because we haven't told each other in advance, part of the fun. But my number 11 is Shaka Hislop.
Oh.
So I'm guessing he might appear on your list somewhere. And I don't know really what to say. Similar to Darius Dovcek, he elevated that position in terms of quality. I think he replaced Steve Francis, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And Steve had a big career.
Francis was a great keeper for Reading, but and look at what he went on to do. Shaka Hislop, Newcastle, West Ham, I think Portsmouth as well, wasn't it? And didn't he last year? He was given the freedom of Newcastle or something like that. So
yes,
fantastic player. And he was player of the season in 94-95, the first non-European winner. Can you remember which European winner won player of the season the previous season?
Oh God, where? Jeez, my memory.
Malta. I'll give you a clue. Malta.
Oh God, jeez, I can't. You can't not let him, can you? Yeah, we know who. Who would that be? I wonder. Does he have a podcast? Does he do anything like that?
So. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. So Shaka Hislop is my number 11. Absolutely brilliant keeper. Player of the season in that 94-95 season. Obviously was the keeper for the playoff final against Bolton. Been a guest on the podcast, and one of the greatest Reading keepers of all time, without question. So
yeah, definitely.
Shaka Hislop is my number 11. How about you, Johnny? Your number 11?
I've gone for Dean Horrocks. Again, we talk about partnerships and different abilities. He was something special in that team. Again, strikers have different strengths, but he was, I don't know, just a natural ability to bring other people into the game. And it's just so sad that he's no longer with us, because I think anyone that watched him was you could see what he brought to the team. It's hard sometimes to put it in words, because unless you've watched somebody like that play,
he was sort of, I don't know, he was kind of in between a number 9 and a number 10 in a way.
Goal
scorer, but he had that kind of guile and those qualities that you get in a number 10 as well. But he was a striker, but he had a bit more about him. Very great player to watch.
Yeah.
And, as you say, very very sadly, I think he died in a car accident.
Yeah.
Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So really, I mean the record-breaking Royal side, one of the best Reading players in the 80s for sure, and. Funnily enough, my number 10 is Dean Horrocks. So number 10 for me, Dean Horrocks. So so he signed in 83. He made 190 appearances, scored 43 goals, which is actually a really good ratio when you consider that you also had Trevor Senior in the team, who was the Erling Haaland of the day for Reading, wasn't he? So Dean Horrocks is your number 11, and he's my number 10.
There you go.
We're
getting to the good stuff now.
Fantastic player, absolutely. Anyone that watched Reading in the 80s and was putting together a list of their favourite players, I think he'd have a shout to be on those lists. So so that's my number 10, and your number 11, Johnny. Who's your number 10?
Another finisher. Jamie Curran. Absolute class. Again, that goal v Brentford, that finish. I don't think anyone forget that because that was just, he's like Adam Le Fondre. He was just a natural finisher. Just made it look so easy. He scored the easy goals. He's always in the right, but then he'd score some absolute screamers as well. It wasn't just a 6-yard poacher, because I remember a few, volleys from outside the box. And he played with a smile on his face as well, and came into that team, and it's a shame. The only thing, as I think he said himself, that he made a bad decision to leave, because I think he was one of the best finishers we've had at the club.
Yeah, and he's already on my list, so it's starting to happen now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we got Dean Horrocks was almost in the same position as well. So. But he was a fantastic player for Reading, and I think that goal at Brentford, the quality of that goal and the kind of what if you kind of take what that meant, you know, that goal got Reading automatic promotion.
Yeah.
But the way, you know, his calmness in how he finished, because it wasn't an easy finish,
No, not at all.
but he was so calm. It was as if he was just, you know, in a kickabout before a Sunday
Yeah.
league game or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable.
And it was just like I think that goal sums up what Jamie Cureton was to Reading. Not only to remember him for that momentous moment that got Reading promoted, but I think that just sort of typified him as a player. So he's your number 10. So the last two, Dean Horrocks and Jamie Cureton, have appeared on both lists. Darius Dovcek's been on both lists. My number 9, I don't know if you remember, we had him on as a guest, and I said to him that he was one of my favourite Reading players, Paul Holsgrove.
Yes. Yeah.
So Paul Holsgrove, I just thought he was a great midfield player, really good to watch. Signed in 94, part of that brilliant 94-95 season, made 86 appearances, 7 goals. And just, I mean, you know, people like Simon Osborne, Paul Holsgrove, that whole team really was just fantastic. And we're going to do, and part of this series of our Reading FC Top 100 is going to include, you know, our most memorable seasons, and that was certainly one of them. And he even had the kind of he sort of looked like a footballer, didn't he, with the floppy hair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, he had that kind of I'm a footballer look about him, but just such a stylish player. Just really enjoyed watching him. So my number 9 is Paul Holsgrove. What about you, Johnny? Number 9.
I've gone for again. These 9 could be interchangeable. To be honest, so it could go like 8, 7, 6 because they're all class. But I've gone for Graham Murty. Again, you know, the leadership. You know, obviously we got promoted, but you know, he was a fantastic leader on and off the pitch. Did a lot for the club. You know, fun, you know, charity stuff that wasn't, you know, obvious. Had it, you know, when he signed for us back in the late 90s, you know, he was injured for quite a lot, and it took him a while to get going. But he was just immense, you know, going forward and defending wise. But leadership, again, you know, he was one of those kind of roll your sleeves up and led by example, and you know, expected high standards. And it's no coincidence that, you know, that's why they had such a great season, because he left from the front, and was a good footballer as well. You know, he started out as another one who started out as a winger. I think, you know, and then came back into, you know, well, it was more of a right back then, wasn't really a wing back role at Reading, but I'm sure, you know, he would have done that as well. But yeah, an absolute legend.
Yeah, and obviously captain of the 106 side, got that famous goal. You know, did the rugby tackle on the mascot.
Yeah.
And he was he player of the season one season? Or was it more than, was it a couple of times? I can't remember.
I think 1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah. But no, fantastic player. And we voted him, we chose that on Series 1, we chose our greatest Reading 11 from the past 50 years, didn't we? And he was not only in the 11, but we made him our captain, didn't we? So I mean, there's so many players. I think we could have easily done a sort of top 50 favourite players, top 100, but we decided to make it a bit easier on ourselves to do a top 25. So that's your number 9, Johnny, is Murty. Number 8 for me. A lot of the players on my list go back to the 80s because that's when I really got hooked on following Reading. And one player that I really enjoyed watching was Jerry Williams. You know, another fantastic Reading winger to watch. He actually signed in 1976. He made more than 350 appearances. Fantastic winger, great to watch. He was player of the season in 81-82. And I don't know if you remember, Johnny, he scored the goal, Jerry Williams, as Reading beat Blackpool 1-0 on the first day of the season at the start of the record-breaking run of 13 wins. At the start of the 85-86 season. I think it was a header. I think that goal was a header. Not 100% sure, but I've got a feeling that was a header. So he started the run. So if he hadn't scored that goal and it had ended up 0-0, we would have never,
we'd have nothing to talk about.
Wouldn't have even, that 13 wins in a row at the start of the season wouldn't have even started. So I think one of, obviously this is a very long time ago, so my memory might be a bit hazy. I think we're talking, if my maths is correct, this is something like 35 years ago. January 87. Is that 35 years? Yeah.
36.
35, 36.
36, yeah.
36, yeah, 36 years. So I told you my maths was rubbish. So Reading played Arsenal in the third round of the FA Cup. I think it was January 87.
Yeah.
And it was Elm Park. And I think Kenny Sampson at the time was obviously playing for Arsenal, was also playing for England. And from what I remember about that game, Kenny Sampson got absolutely done up like a kipper by Jerry Williams. So I think we lost the game 3-1. Trevor Senior scored for Reading. Arsenal won the game 3-1. But one of the highlights, apart from Trevor Senior's goal, was Jerry Williams on that day. So Jerry Williams is number 8 on my list of favourite Reading players. Who have you got as your number 8, Johnny?
You just mentioned him, actually. Super Trevor Senior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, like, geez, what a finisher, what a player.
Machine, wasn't he?
Yeah, unbelievable. Like, and you see all these other guys in the back, still managed to score goals around him. But yeah, like, he wasn't the quickest. He wasn't anything special, but he was. It's kind of bizarre, wasn't he? It wasn't the. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't.
He wasn't He wasn't the greatest player.
Yeah.
He was, without question, one of Reading's greatest goal scorers of all time. I mean, he was top scorer 7 seasons. I think one season he got 40 goals, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah,
good shot. To do that at any level that long, with possible injuries and stuff, takes some doing.
And it wasn't just 7 years, it was longer than that, because he went away. I think he played for Watford, Middlesbrough, and then came back. And then all of a sudden top scorer again. And he said when we had him on as a guest, he said that if he was playing now, he'd be rubbish. He said it was just. I think it was just being in the right, just having that knack of being in the right place. And a lot of them were close range finishes, weren't they? But as a goal scorer, you can argue all you like about what Jimmy Quinn was like as a player and all the goals he scored. But as a goal scorer over a long period of time, he was, one of the greatest in Reading's.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah. So he's your number 8. My number 7, who has already been on your list, Johnny, is Phil Parkinson. Joined Reading in 92, more than 400 games, scored more than 20 goals for Reading. Player of the season twice in 97-98 season and the 98-99 season. And not only one of the greatest midfielders in Reading's history, but one of the greatest players to have ever played for Reading. And obviously he had that time when he had the mask, and he was a good player, but he just had that never say die attitude. He was sort of like a much more cultured version of Terry Hurlock.
A nice version.
But he was tough, wasn't he? A tough midfielder.
Absolutely.
He's not going to shy away from 50-50s, and I think, like I say, it might have been Colin Lee that said that someone said, well, look, if you sign Phil Parkinson, he'll run through brick walls for you. And he kind of, when he had that mask on, he looked like he had literally done that. Brilliant player. So Phil Parkinson, one of the all-time Reading greatest players. is my number 7. Who's your number 7, Johnny?
I've got severe man love for this guy, Shane Long. I just look. I know it's great to see him back this year. I know, yeah, he's coming towards the end of his career, but I just what he is as a player, person. I just he's been Reading through and through when he was there first time round. Came over in that incredible deal with Doyle. Chipped in that season, the 106 season, and in the Premier League. Had a very gutted he left when we lost the playoff final, and then had a great career after. Played in the Premier League every season afterwards until he came back to us. And just, he just was a decent. He's a good. It probably wasn't. There wasn't the most natural finisher. I think, but he worked, and that season I think when under McDermott, when he came back in, he went on a run and scored a number, and he showed his true worth, and has done since. But he's just somebody I'm very fond of as what his story to come over at the age he did and to have the career he did.
And he waited his turn, didn't he? Because you had to start with, you had Kitson, Doyle, and Lita, and he was kind of the fourth choice, wasn't he? And then he waited his turn, took his chance, and then stayed in the side. Obviously, went on to become one of Reading's main strikers. Had success at other clubs, like you said, and come back now. So I think it's good for the fans to see him. Obviously, not the player that he was, but still great to have him back. And I think that there's that kind of bit of the in joke, isn't there, with Reading fans? Oh, we've spotted this player at the Oracle, But I think that did actually happen with him.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant thing to for him to come back under the circumstances as well. It means a lot for fans.
Yeah, we've got a good list going here, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely.
This one for me, I make no apologies for keep going back to the 80s, but this player kind of, an all-time Reading hero for me, and one of my first sort of Reading heroes really when I first became a inverted commas proper Reading fan and started going to all the games. Number 6, Kevin Bremner.
Oh yes, class.
Player of the season, 86-87. I mentioned Terry Hurlock before. Kevin Bremner was kind of a quicker version of Terry Hurlock front. He would just, he would just smash into people and just saw a chance with a goal, and he'd make sure the ball went in the net. And I think what typified Kevin Bremner was that game when Reading were 3-0 down against Plymouth, come back to win 4-3. And I think Ian Bramford, Kevin Bremner didn't come on a sub, but I think he might have been playing in midfield and he got pushed.
That's right, yeah.
And that was Kevin Bremner's game. I mean, if it hadn't have been for him, we wouldn't have won that game, I don't think. No. So just an all-time Reading legend. Been a guest on the podcast. One of my Reading heroes. Just a fantastic player, and that kind of commitment and that attitude. He wanted to win at all costs. Well, that's the way he played kind of gave you that feeling, and as a fan, that's what you want in the players. You want to see that, that 100% commitment, almost like someone who would die for the cause.
Yeah, no, definitely.
He sort of gave that energy off, didn't he? He's an absolute legend for Reading. So my number 6, my last player on this part of this list is Kevin Bremner. And how about you, Johnny? Who have you gone for number 6?
Another legend, Michael Gilks. Just what excitement machine. Proper wingers, in proper days where watching in Elm Park, bombing down the wing, and so quick, skillful. Probably a bit inconsistent at times because that's those kind of players, isn't it? But I think it was just you didn't know what was going to happen when he got the ball, and I don't think he did. Maybe sometimes, and I don't think probably the defenders did. But that's what made it so special, wasn't it? To see somebody of that pace playing for us and creating the opportunities, and to score goals as well. But and now back at the club as well, which is brilliant. But
So
yeah,
quick, isn't he? Just such an
yeah,
exciting player to watch.
and balanced as well.
Yeah.
He was it's been a nightmare to play against, but a special player.
Yeah.
And to play that many games,
yeah,
as he did, he's playing at that pace, and somebody wants to chop you down in those days that you could, just to avoid injury took a lot.
Yeah, no, fantastic player. Great name to finish off this particular section of our countdown, Johnny. So on the next episode, we'll be finishing off our list of favourite Reading players, counting down our 5 to 1. I'm sure there's going to be 1 or 2 duplicates on there that we may have already mentioned. Looking forward to that, and we'll announce our 1871 podcast quiz champion as well. So looking forward to that.